interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Month.
Whole month of Courage, the Cowardly Dog. First appearing in 1996, it was picked up by Cartoon Network, who work in the middle of Burbank, and directed by cartoonist John Dilworth. Though many years have passed since the original air date, it's now time for Zack to celebrate this great show.
Well, old sport, what do you think? Me. Hey guys, Zack Morris here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So we've actually got two new reviews to go through. We've got Queen of the Black Puddle and Everyone Wants to Direct, two of which are kind of interesting in their own right. So I'm going to just get through them. So without further ado, let's just get into the first review. Okay, so this first episode, the Queen of the Black Puddle, is actually interesting. The way it is kind of mirrors the previous episode we reviewed, The Gods Must Be Goosey. But it's kind of an opposite of that, where it's actually Eustace who winds up getting seduced by the titular Queen of the Black Puddle. So it starts off with It starts off during a rainstorm, and it's kind of sort of raining. And Courage, Eustace, and Muriel are all hunkered down inside. And Courage notes that Eustace seems to be planning something. He's pretty on edge and notices that thinks that Eustace might actually be planning to scare him. And he's right. Eustace actually uses a fake mouth to actually scare Courage and chase him off. And as Courage runs outside, Muriel actually beats him over the head with a rolling pin off screen, which is really funny. He actually notices a puddle in the front yard and goes to look into it, and then his reflection actually morphs into the titular Queen of the Black Puddle, which freaks him out a little bit, and he runs back inside to actually warn Muriel and Eustace what's going on. Eustace kind of brushes it off, just calling him a stupid dog again. But and Muriel is a little confused as to what he's talking about as well, since obviously all she really gets from that is that it's something to do with a puddle. She doesn't really understand what's going on. So Courage actually takes her outside and shows her the puddle, but the Queen of the Black Puddle actually does not manifest herself while Muriel is there. So Muriel just acknowledges that he might have seen a fish or something, and proceeds to go back inside and make everybody some tea. And as everybody's drinking their tea, including Eustace, who is actually kind of drinking some tea and reading his newspaper, as Muriel goes back into the kitchen to get herself some more tea, the Queen of the Black Puddle manifests herself from the mist in Eustace's teacup, and then starts splashing him in the face, which causes him to have a dumbstruck look on his face, and has a very placated, happy look. Which Courage freaks out a bit, because obviously the Queen of the Black Puddle seems like she's bad news, since she's trying to seduce Eustace throughout the episode. And Courage runs to Muriel to let her know what's up, but all she really sees is that Eustace has a goofy look on his face, and wonders if Eustace is feeling all right. At which point Eustace recovers and points out that he's fine, and that it's just the tea that's causing him to kind of space out a little bit. So she then points out that that while she was in there, she noticed that the kitchen ceiling was actually dripping, and asks Eustace to go fix it. So he grabs a bucket, places it under the dripping, and also complains a little bit about how he's always asked to fix everything, because that's kind of his job as the husband. But that's beside the point. At which point the Queen of the Black Puddle actually manifests herself as one of the drips coming from the ceiling, and starts spraying Eustace in the face again. And Courage understandably freaks out and goes to go get Muriel again. And by the time she comes back, Eustace already has yet another dumbstruck look on his face and is actually sitting in the bucket that's supposed to be catching the drips. And she starts wondering if Eustace is actually feeling all right, since obviously this is the second time this has happened. So she decides that it's likely time to get Eustace ready for bed, and proceeds to start drawing him a bath, and he goes and gets in. And while he's in the bath, the Queen of the Black Puddle once again manifests herself and starts seducing Eustace again, and this time asks him to come with her. Courage, who was actually getting ready for his own bath, actually comes in, sees Eustace being pulled into the into the lake and actually decides that, well, not the lake, but into the bath, and goes to get Muriel. And the only thing she really sees is of Eustace trying to climb down the drain. So she decides that it's probably time to go see a doctor and actually make sure Eustace is actually feeling all right. So with that, they go to bed. But then the Queen of the Black Puddle comes out of her titular black puddle. So she comes to go scoop up Eustace. She actually immediately makes a beeline for his bedroom, but realizing the door is locked, she actually turns herself into puddle water and slips under the door. And upon seeing her come into the bedroom, Courage freaks out and cowers under the blanket. And at which point the Queen of the Black Puddle actually takes the opportunity to scoop up Eustace and bring her back to his puddle. And Courage can only watch dumb with a scared look on his face as Eustace is kind of abducted and pulled into the black puddle. And then the next morning, and Courage stays there until the next morning watching the puddle. At which point he hears Muriel crying in the kitchen and goes to go see what's wrong. And long story short, she just misses her husband and wants him to come back. Courage, after trying and failing to cheer her up several times, including balloon animals, some tea, a couple of other things that she likes, and also some puppets beating himself over the head with a frying pan, just anything to make her laugh or smile or forget about what's going on. He eventually realizes that there's only one thing he can do, but as Courage remarks, he's not going to like doing it. So he then proceeds to go and get some scuba gear and gets ready to leap into the black puddle to go and get Eustace, but then notes that the puddle is actually shrinking and realizes he only has a borrowed window of time before the puddle closes up completely. And with that, he then proceeds to jump into the black puddle, and we actually go into the Queen's domain. Long story short, it's littered with skulls, bones, and a couple other things, and the only exception being her castle. Courage then proceeds to poke his head into the window to actually see what's going on, and he notices that the Queen of the Black Puddle is actually dancing in front of Eustace, who is sitting inside a clamshell. And notes that, and then she pulls out a necklace and begins to put it on Eustace. And Courage notes that the necklace looks familiar, and then realizes that all the bones strewn around are actually previous people that the Queen of the Black Puddle has actually seduced, and that they're all wearing the same exact necklace. And realizing that he's likely going to get eaten, he then proceeds to try and find a way to rescue Eustace. And not a moment too soon, because the Queen of the Black Puddle actually takes on a more monstrous form and tries to eat Eustace. But Courage actually snatches a fishing line from a nearby boat, and proceeds to anchor it into Eustace's pajama bottoms and pulls him out the window. At which point Courage tries to escape out the gate with the Queen of the Black Puddle hot on his tail, and Courage dodges. The Queen actually destroys the gate, which is currently keeping Courage from escaping. And then Courage actually comes up with an idea to actually slow her down a little bit, and proceeds to take her back to the castle, and then using the clam, he actually baits her with Eustace and then pulls him away at the last minute, which causes her to get stuck inside the clam and get stuck. And at which point Courage realizes with the Queen of the Black Puddle kind of temporarily dealt with, he proceeds to race back to the puddle, only for it to close just before he gets there. And he has very little time to actually search for another puddle to escape through, because right at that exact moment the Queen of the Black Puddle is hot on his heels and is trying to chase him. But he eventually notices another puddle and goes to see it, and as it turns out, it's a puddle created from Muriel's tears. So he eventually pulls Eustace through it and back to safety, and then dries up the puddle so that the Queen of the Black Puddle can't follow them. And Muriel is happy that Eustace has finally arrived and come back home, but then also beats him over the head with their rolling pin for worrying her and wondering where the hell he's been. And Courage just takes a sigh of relief now that everything is back to normal, and with that he then finally goes to go take his bath. But then the Queen of the Black Puddle shapeshifts into a dog and tries to seduce Courage as well. That's how the episode ends. So yeah, this episode's kind of interesting in that Eustace is actually kind of a victim in the story. It's one of the few times where Courage actually has to try and save Eustace, because Eustace is very rare for Courage to actually try and save Eustace. He normally only tries to save Muriel and help her, but in this case, the only way to help Muriel is to actually retrieve Eustace from the black puddle. So he has no choice but to save Eustace, a man he doesn't really like all that much. So so it is kind of interesting. But it isn't. What's also interesting here is that Muriel clearly very much loves Eustace, who kind of has a one-sided relationship with that, even though he married her, which is interesting. But in any case, that's my review of that. Onward to the next review. Okay, so this episode, Everyone Wants to Direct, is actually about a zombie filmmaker who comes back from the dead to try and resurrect his dead partner. So, yeah, that's just the premise of this. But in any case, the Bag family is actually sitting alone in their house. They're actually kind of sitting down to watch TV, and it's at this point where we actually meet Fenton Tarantella, and as I said, he's a zombie. It's not so subtle that he's a zombie, but he's wearing a pair of fake glasses and a fake nose, so he looks human enough that nobody actually questions it. At which point he introduces himself, states that he's a very famous movie director and that he actually wants to shoot his new film. He actually has been scouting for a new location to shoot his new film and wonders if he can come in. And while Muriel is actually more than happy to actually kind of work with Tarantella, pointing out that he is a famous movie actor and movie director, and that she feels like she's seen him on TV. Courage is very skeptical of the fact of Tarantella and points out that he seems very odd. But in any case, he does manage to convince the Bag family to actually let them use his farm for his new movie. Pointing out that it's actually about zombies rising from the grave on a farmhouse, and as he goes on to explain that he actually wants them to actually star in the movie. And Eustace is a bit more reluctant until he realizes he's going to get paid a whole bunch for doing the movie, so they decide to also sign on the dotted line. At which point, Tarantella's glasses fall off, and Courage quickly realizes he's a zombie and tries to warn Eustace and Muriel, but Tarantella just kind of kicks Courage a little bit and just dissuades the whole thing by saying that Muriel is actually perfect for her movie. At which point he brings them down to the basement to actually starts quote unquote framing his shots. And he's actually looking around the whole basement, finding his quote unquote establishing shots and start giving everybody their roles. Pointing out that Muriel would actually be perfect for the role, and that he actually wants her to play the victim of the movie, when the zombies come back up, and asks Eustace to start digging a hole. And while in the process, his hand falls off while he's actually checking his establishing shots, but which Courage tries to warn the family about, but Tarantella merely points out that he just needs to go away, and that he's actually disrupting the shot. So Eustace kicks him out and sends him back into the main house while the rest of them work in the basement. And also Tarantella opens the cellar doors, so that he can actually see that he can actually see the planets aligning. At which point, Courage, realizing he's out of options, actually goes up to the computer to actually figure out if he can find a record of Fenton Tarantella in the director's database. And the computer initially can't find anything, but Courage actually encourages the computer to just keep looking. Eventually, Courage does find something about how apparently Fenton Tarantella and his former partner Errol Van Volkenheim, they apparently killed 12 people and were committed and locked up. And while Volkenheim eventually got loose and actually wound up being set free and actually went off on his merry way, Tarantella actually died in the prison and has been there since until this day, until he showed up at the Bag farm as a zombie. At which point, Courage asks the computer what happened to Valkenheim, and the computer merely tells him that he's dead, which Courage initially celebrates until he finds out that he was actually buried on the Bag property, which is why Tarantella is actually there. So Courage getting a very bad feeling and now knowing that Tarantella is indeed a zombie. He then proceeds to go down in the basement and actually read the script for the movie. And as it turns out, it's not so much a script, but rather a four-phase plan that is basically just telling Terra resurrecting his former partner using the planet's alignment. And long story short, he just wants to resurrect his partner so that they can eat Muriel, which Courage then proceeds to freak out a little bit over and tries to warn Muriel about, who is currently being tied down to a table, willingly, I might add, because she thinks it's part of the movie. But as it turns out, as Courage tries to dissuade everybody to not go ahead with the movie, Tarantella decides to actually make up a role for Courage, which is to just be locked in one of the chests nearby, so that he doesn't actually disrupt the whole ritual for Tarantella and Valkenheim. And Eustace does it. He's more than happy to actually lock Courage in the chest, and at which point Valkenheim makes the final preparations to actually get ready to actually let his friend loose, and actually asks Eustace to actually film the resurrection ritual, which works, and Valkenheim actually returns from the grave. And while they're doing that, Courage realizes he actually needs to do something to actually get rid of them, and realizing that they're actually following the script from the film as part of their 4-part plan, he decides to actually sneak up to actually slowly walk the chest up to the table where the script is, and then swipes the script and changes it. And right on time too, because shortly after Valkenheim actually resurrected, they get ready to set up again and get ready to eat Muriel, which Eustace kind of stalls a little bit since he is kind of made director by Valkenheim and Tarantella at the price of more money, which Eustace is very happy about. But but in any case, Eustace gets promoted to director and can't really get them in a good position where they can actually get the shots, and he keeps asking him to move. So and eventually Tarantella tells Eustace that if he doesn't know what to do next, they can just look at the script. By which point, Courage has actually changed the script and changed it so that in A, Eustace lets Courage out of the box, and B, Tarantella and Valkenheim are actually buried back in the dirt where they came from. So Tarantella is a little bit annoyed since he doesn't remember writing any of that in the script, but decides that if it's in the script, then he's going to have to do it anyway. So he lets Courage out of the box. But then complains about how he has to actually go back in the dirt and go back to sleep. And Valkenheim also chews Tarantella out a little bit for this, pointing out that he was always a lousy writer and that he's never going to work with him again. And then as they're going back in the hole where they came from, Courage actually scoops up the dirt and places it in the hole, and then sets Muriel free, and the day is saved. At which point they all sit down to watch their quote-unquote movie to actually Muriel actually points out that Courage very much became the star of the show and stole the whole show. With Eustace just complaining about how he doesn't feel like he's ever going to get paid. At which point Courage puts on Tarantella's glasses and tells the camera that he's ready for his close-up, and then they make like a fourth wall joke where the camera zooms in way too close and actually breaks against Courage's face. And Courage just tells him not to get that close. So yeah, overall this episode is just kind of interesting in that there was just a zombie director that just shows up, and out of the blue he just shows up and tries to resurrect his dead partner. And it's interesting that there actually are a pair of serial killers that are just buried underneath the bag farm for whatever reason, or at least the one of them is. Don't think Tarantella was ever originally buried under there, but he is now. So there he goes. But yeah, this episode is just interesting, and that Courage is the only one who really seems to realize that there's any real danger. Everybody else just thinks it's a movie. But Tarantella, but what is interesting is that Tarantella is actually kind of a famous movie director, because he posed as a director, quote unquote, but he does claim that he is indeed a famous director, which isn't technically a lie. He does clearly know his stuff about directing, but that's ultimately just a front so that he can kill and eat people. So it's kind of interesting in that front. But in any case, that is my review of Courage the Cowardly Dog. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel, then that's the best way to do that. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon so you guys can actually help support future projects like this, because obviously this is a massive project, and if you guys want to help support me, by all means, I recommend it. Link is down in the description. Just go support me in any future projects that you may want to see from me. So yeah, just go check that out. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Or some bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. And either of those may or may not be courage related. So if you guys want to see more of that, then just check those out down in the end screen. Also, be sure to check out my Twitch down in the description below as well. I'm trying to fulfill a milestone with that, and I would like your help. But more to the point, I'm also playing horror games as part of Courage Month, and I'm actually playing a series of horror games over on that. So if you want to check those out, by all means, link is down in the description. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!